Let's talk about another hat that you're now donning, where you're now in the space of venture capital and private equity, relatively newer foray for you. But what is it that you're now looking at in that domain? Because this is an area where and knowing some people in the community, they would go a lot with gut feel, or what was really happening with a trend globally, and what they might think would happen here. EdTech, for example. But what is your role, and what are you coming in and doing in this domain now?
So, it's a young fund. It's the first SEBI-approved AIF Category 2 fund of this fund house. It's called Navam Capital. But Navam Capital has been an angel and proprietary investor for 15 years. In fact, how I got to know them was I was an angel investor in one of their very first assets back in 2009 when nobody was talking of this space, right? I've always felt that when you have a good business idea, there's only 3 ways to raise money in India for the idea.
Okay.
The first is grants. Sure. So the government has an ecosystem where you will give grants to an idea, but typically it's easier for you to get that if you're in an academic institution or at least in an incubator. Right. As a freelance inventor, it's almost impossible. Right. The second is debt. Sure. But most banks look at an idea and say, why should I fund this? I can fund agriculture where I will have some kind of back-end support, security, right? Or I want collateral. So idea people don't have collateral. It's like George Stephenson had to cut down his furniture to fund his first engine, right? So where we are looking is really the next horizon. We call it deep tech, but that's also a much abused word already. So what we are thinking of is companies that already have some clear intellectual property in something that we foresee will be disruptive. And that's coming from my experience of disruptions. Right. And in the fund, we have people who've worked in disruptions. Right. So the chairman of the fund is Dr. Raghunath Mashelkar, who was the former DG of CSIR and has been championing innovation for 40 plus years. Right. We have Alan Rosling, who was he was on the board of Tata Sons. And he's seen the global space for years. Rajiv Mantri, the founder, who I mentioned, has been an angel investor. He's a material scientist who worked at Lux Capital for some years before he got bit by this bug. Mm-hmm. So we are looking very critically at proposals that come our way. Not automatic because there is a big market or because there's hype around, let's say, drones or around some kind of biotech, but really drilling down to who will care about the product, what's the traction that they're likely to get, what's their ability to deliver the traction, is the intellectual property coming into conflict with global patents filed by others. So if it's India only, then it might not be so attractive, right? So we don't only look at a model that looks at exiting for valuation, look at a model that creates long-term value over a 10-year horizon.
Very compelling. I know you mentioned it's a Category 2 AIF, but can investors play a role in being a part of it?
Yeah, we are still in a fundraise. So with the minimum ticket size of 1 crore, any investor interested can take a look into the fund. We'd be happy to have those conversations. And we also encourage our investors to make themselves knowledgeable about the kind of things we invest in. Because we are not investing in a bubble, right? We are looking to invest in something that is sustainable, not just from the sustainability label as people talk about, but from doing long-term business that improves India's competitiveness while creating lasting value socially and economically.
Amazing. And I think, just on the basis of what I hear and the background of the people involved, I think it really warrants, a look in. So again, for anyone who's looking to make that investment, we'll put the coordinates of Dr. Anjan Ray and the fund. So feel free to take that conversation forward as well. You mentioned a bubble, and I also spend a lot of time with a lot of youth, and across the board really, where there's a lot of attraction towards, let's say, the financial markets, for one. And there's this, the jury's still out. Are we now, in a bubble? Are we heading towards a bubble? Price to earning ratios seem really, really high, where companies like Reliance are now touching 30. You have some of the PSUs that have gone to 100, close to 200 in some cases as well. Your thoughts, on this phenomena?
Yeah, so I'm not a financial markets expert, But my general worldview can be driven by a simple parameter set called the Gini coefficient. So the Gini coefficient is a measure of inequality in any society or group of individuals, measured on any parameter. So at the moment, also to put it in mathematical perspective, if everybody has equal resource, the Gini coefficient is 0. If 1% has all the resource and everybody has 0, the Gini coefficient is 1. Now, if I look at the world's income distribution, a Gini coefficient of around 0.35 is the boundary line between countries that colonized other countries and between countries that were colonized. So people who had the resources taken away have high Gini and high income disparity. People who took the resources have low Gini and low income disparity. So India is almost on the cusp. We are at about a 0.36 Gini coefficient now for our income. But our wealth Gini is 0.82.
So some work to be done there for sure.
Right. No, but what I'm saying is that a simple yardstick that I would apply to the question that you asked about what do I think of financial markets, etc., is financial markets, valuations, stock prices create wealth. They don't create income. Right? Unless you do something that creates income that trickles down to the bottom of the pyramid, and which does it in the long term without subsidies or without doles, you don't create genuine traction towards raising the income Gini and lowering the wealth Gini.
Interesting. I have never heard that before. So again, thank you for educating me in that area. And I've been in the markets for a very, very long time. But yes, learned something new today.